Hi, I'm Todd Houlihan. Welcome to the final instalment in our GEOCHEM technical tutorial series. I'm joined by Ted Shields again, the VANTA XRF product manager. Hola Ted.
Hola Todd, what's the plan for today?
The plan is to review the series, summarise it, and just provide a few additional pieces of advice to make sure you run your program smoothly.
And you wanted to start with the VANTA hardware, right?
Indeed. I just want to reinforce the message regarding the front window to make sure it's always kept clean. Use a tissue or a wet wipe if there's some dust on it, and that it's intact. If it's broken or split, to replace it immediately, and then run the blank to make sure there's no contamination on that front area of the analyzer that could affect your results.
And I want to start with some software tips. The idea is that you should keep your software up to date. We release new features all the time, so it's important that your VANTA is kept up to date, as well as if you're using the PC software, it lets you run the VANTA from your PC, that's kept up to date as well.
You can schedule the VANTA to do it automatically for you, can't you?
That's right. If you've got a wireless dongle in the VANTA, it will check for the latest software update and download it automatically, and all you have to do is hit accept, and your software is updated.
What about compatibility between the PC software and the software on the VANTA?
Yeah, they need to be kept at the same software version, so you can go and get the software for the PC software at the IMS website, or the more current versions of that have the same features as the VANTA. It'll go look for the software and download it if your IT permissions let you.
Okay. Any other software tips?
Yeah, I've got just one more. The record is kept on the VANTA of your results. That's where the main record is. And so you should hit the sync button in the PC software to bring those results over into the PC software, and we get a current copy of that's current and up to date. Then
you'll have the data stored on the VANTA and on your computer, right?
That's correct.
Okay, there's a few more features that I want to cover before we move any further. Some of these have a few video tutorials in their own right. The first is collimation. I want to just touch on the fact that some of our instruments can reduce the standard spot size that we measure from the 9mm standard diameter down to 3mm. This is just a reminder to make sure that's set as you want it to be set before each test.
Another option is the compound display feature, which lets you take things like silicon or other light elements and display them in their oxide form, their compound form if you want. We just multiply by the conversion factor and display it that way as a convenience for the user.
Right. Pseudo elements is the other one we should touch on. It allows us to do some mathematical calculation to the elemental concentration and display the results of the mathematics on the screen rather than the elements. So we can ratio different elements, we can sum different elements, and we can display whatever we want on the screen of the analyzer. Customers have said they really like that.
Yeah, that's real popular. Another popular one is to use the notes templates that we offer, the GEOCHEM notes templates. We have a standard template that will cover a lot of things that people want to record, things like the operator, the project number, and those sorts of things. But for whatever your uses are, you can make your own template. It's completely customizable.
Okay, one thing we want to make sure we reinforce in this last video is the importance of the way the sample is presented to the XRF, specifically sample density and sample thickness. Ted?
Yeah, in the factory we take the ideal scenario where things are densely packed, the sample is densely packed, it's 10 to 15 millimeters thick, and we've covered it with a Proline film that's very X-ray transmissive.
But if we samples are not like that, which is probably 75% of our customers, we can still get good data, right?
Yeah, you can get real useful results. You're probably going to get some trending, and there'll be some effect due to the fact that it's not like what we've calibrated with.
But like with what we were saying with moisture a couple of videos back, if we're consistent, we do the same thing over and over again, our results will be relative to each other and therefore useful to the majority of customers, right?
Yeah, exactly, just like that. It's the same sort of effect. But one other thing we should note is that you can reuse your sample cups, but not the Proline films. The films are going to likely have contamination, but if you clean the cups, you can reuse those. Thanks
to Ingrid from Innovex Africa for that reminder.
Another important aspect is data management. Data management is important because with PXRF you can take a lot of data, so you need to have a good protocol to handle all of that data in a good chain of custody. We help that by having export templates, just like we had our notes templates. You can set those up in the PC software and go from there. Or you can export your data directly to the Olympus Scientific Cloud, which is a very secure environment.
We should also talk about check your QA/QC results very regularly, daily preferably. The reason is if there's some suspect batches or some data not quite right, or your workflow or your method has fallen down for whatever reason, you can come and address that in real time. You don't have to wait weeks or months to address it.
Yeah, it's a good point. And another thing that you should be aware of are spectral interferences. We've dealt with most of these in the factory so that the end users don't need to be X-ray physics experts. We've taken care of that. But there are a few that people should be aware of.
And the most common one we get asked about regularly is
gold.
Right.
Yeah, gold has a very crowded area of the spectrum, and people are interested in very low levels. And some of those other elements that are nearby can lead to some false positives. So it's just something that you need to be aware of.
I mean, we're obviously aware that fire assay is the preferred technique to measure gold, but the reality for us is we have a large proportion of our customer base are gold explorers and miners, either testing directly for gold or using the Pathfinder elements.
Yeah, you can get some real useful information, and if your sample doesn't have any of those conflicting elements, you can get down to 1 to 2 ppm of gold.
Right. Any other spectral interferences we should?
Yeah, there are a few that are common. There's a triplet with titanium, vanadium, and barium. There's a lead arsenic effect, and higher levels of iron can affect chrome or cobalt. Although we've done some really good work recently because of the interest in battery metals to distinguish low amounts of cobalt and high amounts of iron.
The best piece of advice we can give is the importance of having someone within a company to take ownership of the XRF program.
So what do you mean by ownership, Todd?
Someone who champions the XRF, takes ultimate responsibility, maybe a super user is a word that's been used, to take ultimate ownership of the quality of the data produced and implementing the XRF throughout a company. Ultimately, someone or a few people who can say the data collected is fit for purpose.
So what does a champion or super user do?
They need to cover all the things that we've tried to cover in this video series.
Yeah, right, and that starts with your data quality objectives. You need to identify what it is you want to get out of that, and then do an orientation survey to take a look to see if your process meets them.
Exactly, and the orientation survey needs to cover whether the factory calibration is working on your samples, whether you need or want to adjust that factory calibration, look at what sample preparation you might want to do, the containers you're using, and the test times that you want to optimize it for. And
then, of course, you need a QA/QC program to evaluate your data. Once you evaluate the data from your orientation survey, see if it meets your data quality objectives. If it does, then you've designed a successful PXRF testing program.
Easy.
Easy.
The other piece of advice I do like to give is to not turn your brain off just because you've turned the instrument on. Portable XRF has its strengths, but it has its weaknesses. It should be used as another tool in your toolbox with your GeoPick, your hand lens, and your experience.
Any other closing words?
Just some thank yous, really. Thanks to everyone who's helped out with this video series, specifically Marcus, Aaron, Alex, thanks to you, Ted, but also to our customers. It's our customers that we've learnt most from working with this technology in the GEOCHEM industry. So big thanks to you guys. Hopefully we can continue our partnership for many years to come. Thanks again, mate.
Very welcome, anytime.
It's been fun. Go well.